To our Wednesday finance meeting. Traditionally, we have addressed the ongoing struggle between the forces of increasing costs and relatively flat revenues and how the county tries to address that. Today we have with us our friends from the planning department to talk about trends in economic growth in the county. We have lots of good news. County is growing quickly. Obviously, a lot of different paths that you can go down growth-wise, but obviously growth has always been a major driver of revenue. So as costs increase and we try to contain costs, simultaneously we need to look at ways that we can enhance revenue generation as well. We also have a special bonus feature in today's offering that at the end of this, the second feature will be Bridge Over Troubled Water. And Kirk will give us some updates on the bridges, but for now, let's start off with economic.
Okay. Thanks. What we wanted to do today was to score some of the growth trends we're seeing in the county. The planning department, our annual report, we do an annual voting permit survey and look at growth trends. Also do some population data comes out on a regular basis. So we had this scheduled several times and we get pushed back with other issues. So what we put together was a summary of some of the more pertinent data that we have to talk to you about today. Shouldn't take too long. Jeff Kelly's with me today. He'll lead off here going over some of the population and other statistics, and then I'll finish up with voting permit data. Okay.
Want me to go? All right, let me go ahead and start with, put my back to it. Okay. Looking at the big picture here in Pennsylvania, put a map together here showing where the population is concentrated. And the darker areas is where the heaviest concentration is of population and the growth that's occurred. This is between 2000 and 2020, okay, for the last two censuses. You can see where it's basically in the southeastern portion of the state. The darker areas, darker areas here, more than 20,000 increase in population. Of course, Cumberland County here is within that. It's one of the fastest growing in the last census. And taking that forward, even through the estimates we have through 2014, Cumberland County is now identified as the fastest growing county in the state. And so I just want to point that out to you as far as where we stand, I guess, regionally. Bring it down a little bit to the metropolitan statistical area, to the tri-county area. Each of these graphs shows our growth, and you can see Cumberland County is the blue line there, Dauphin County the red on top, and then below there is Perry County. But even though we're all in the same statistical area, you can see there's different methods of growth. Dauphin County is basically sort of going standard growth, going up, slow growth. Cumberland County is pretty quick growth there, especially in the 1950s to 70s. It sprang up, and then we're still going faster growth than Dauphin County. And we're expected, some of the projections we've seen to catch up to equal or pass them in about 20 years or so, 20 to 30 years in Dauphin County. And if you look at the bottom there, that is Perry County, and they have remained pretty much stagnant the same way that, throughout from 1900s. Even in the estimate here of 2014, they show a decrease in population, actually, from the 2010 census. And to bring it down to the county here, these are the top 10 municipalities as far as growth is concerned, and population right now. And this is as of 2010, the first column there. And Hampton, East Pennsboro, Carlisle, the top three there. Carlisle was the top until 1990. In 1990, Hampton surpassed them. And then in 2000, East Pennsboro passed Carlisle. So in 2010, it still remained those top three, stayed the same as the top population in the county. But if you look down below there, number 4 and 5, Upper and Lower Allen Township, very close, sort of knocking on the door there. If you look over to the other side, but if you look on the far column there, that gives the estimates. And Hampton and East Pennsboro are still projected or estimated to be the top two. Carlisle has dropped. Upper Allen and Lower Allen have now surpassed it with the estimate. So I'm guessing by the 2020 census, Carlisle Borough will be number 5 on the list, with Upper Allen and Lower Allen passing on.
Same thing happened with Silver Spring.
And Silver Spring, good point. Silver Spring, you see down there, 13,000 in 2010, and in 2014, 15, it's an increase of over 2,000 in just that 4-year period, which is the fastest growth in the county, technically in the state.
Right.
So
Upper Allen has a lot of room to grow though, don't they? Upper Allen still has, I think, a lot of ways to grow yet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Silver Spring.
Not so much.
I mean, seriously, Silver Spring, like, not so much.
This is where the growth is concentrated then in the county by municipality. And if you look, the red is the most concentrated, the highest population, the most growth that's occurred between 2000 and 2010. And you can see in the West Shore area, it's right around Mechanicsburg, basically. Mechanicsburg, also those that are white, have shown a loss in population. So there, it's kind of interesting. Mechanicsburg's in the middle there. It's shown a loss in population, but the townships all around it have gained considerably in the last 10 years. When you go to the center of the county, South Middleton Township seems to be where most of the population is growing. And then if you go to the west, Southampton Township seems to be showing up a lot. What we're seeing there is a lot of growth coming out of Shippensburg, going southeast out of that, following the sewer and water lines coming out of Shippensburg. Okay. Yeah, you see there are 7 municipalities that lost population during the last census. And New Cumberland, Mechanicsburg, Lower Frankfort, Newville, Upper Mifflin, and Shippensburg, or Newburgh, if that would be. Of those, I took a look at the estimates coming out. Still, New Cumberland and Mechanicsburg show a loss still in the estimates for 2014, but very minor losses. The other ones show gains. Newville stays about the same.
Okay. For me, one of those questions then would be, are these individuals renters, or are these properties that someone has turned over and they moved out? In other words, is there still a tax revenue coming from the population that has moved? Or are we losing all of it in the form of people and tax revenue? We don't know that. Okay, but we could find that out through another thought. I mean, you see where I'm getting? If people are moving, but in fact the property continues to generate taxes, okay, or as property, I mean, what's happening with property? Where did these people live? Where did they go to? And what was the property tax supporting these individuals?
I would just, without the data, I would suspect the properties are still there. They're probably still being used, but you're just seeing folks move. Mechanicsburg is probably one of the best examples there. You see the townships growing around it. A lot of those folks are likely to move to the townships.
Or are these new builds where there's been growth?
Yeah.
So you come out of a rental property,
Right.
you've saved your money, and now you're building a home in fill in the blank South Middleton.
Yeah.
Okay? So the rental that you moved out of still is generating money. Now you're generating property tax on the new house.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, I don't know, but I would think that that would be important to sort of know also.
just to summarize those trends, Cumberland County is the fastest growing since 2010. It may catch Dauphin County in the next 20 years or so. The greatest growth is the townships around Mechanicsburg Borough. The next thing I just want to hit is the age trends.
What?
In Cumberland County.
Somebody else was in here earlier doing the age.
Yeah.
On recycling, yeah.
Well,
Or thin ice, let me tell you, you're on thin ice.
very objective here.
All right.
Down the bottom, just point out the median age of Pennsylvania. It is slowly growing higher, but Cumberland County's median age is sort of mirrored it all the way along. At 35 in 1990 for the state, Cumberland County's 34.6, and it goes up. Both were 38 in 2000, both were 40 in 2010. So it seems to be aging similarly to how the state is. The other thing I just point out is where the age, I guess, the elderly and young are concentrated in the county. The red is it's 45 and older, 45 to 50 years old. And you can see it's sort of south central portion of the county. Trying to determine the reason for that, I think part of it's South Middleton Township. There are several retirement facilities in that township, a nursing home in that township. The others, Dickinson, Cook, Monroe, I'm not sure the reasoning for that, just the population there is older, and Lower Frankfurt on there, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But in the west, the furthest west, you see the youngest is Shippensburg Borough and Shippensburg Township.
Are you counting school?
That's it, yeah,
Okay.
that'd be the
You
reason.
got a big bump up
Yeah.
seasonally, for the school.
And that's counted in the census, right? So
And Messiah and Dickinson for the borough.
I think Shippensburg Township, especially, a lot of that is made up of the college itself. And so that's what's counted.
Or those individuals that support the college, too. So,
So it's kind of interesting to see how they play out like that. And the typical population pyramids here, I just point out, this is 2000 on the left, 2010 there to the right. And you can see there's those sort of bulges in the middle there. If you look at 2000, most of the population is within the workforce age group. It's about 20 years old up to 64 is in that. And the largest bulge area there is in the age group of 35 to 49.
and you're considering this full-time.
I'm sorry.
This is any employment, full-time or part-time? It's both.
This is
If you are employed,
Correct.
regardless of full-time or part-time.
Yeah, this is simply population, right?
Because some of the 64 could be supplementing
It could be.
retirement income.
Sure.
So-
Yeah.
But they're
Yeah,
still
just, I
working.
guess you can't count it as a
Yeah,
work
but they're still working.
labor force, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look at 2010, then in comparison, it's still, the bulk of it is in that workforce age group, but it's adjusted, it's moving up. Now most of it is within the 45 to 64 age group. So the labor force, it's still most of it in the labor force, but it's in the higher end of that labor force now. And so what we're gonna see is, the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to move out of that bulge is gonna go up into the retirement age bracket up there, which will be an impact on labor force and health services that we provide. So it's something that we need to look forward to. So that's just a summary of that. Aging population, median age is kind of mirrors the state. Older residents are concentrated in the central part. Most of the workforce is older, 45 to 64. And next 2 decades, that force is going to retire, that group is going to retire, which will be impacting our services. The last thing I just want to point out here is the population growth of the minority population in the county is definitely growing. We're becoming much more diverse than we had been in the past. And if you look at the left bottom corner there, it's the percent of the minority population in the county during those years. In 1990, it was only 3.7%. And in 2000, you can see it growing each decade. 5.6, and by this estimate of 2014, it's 12.3% of the population is a minority. So the graph itself shows that growth from 1990, and those are the three largest minorities: the Black, the Asian, and Hispanic. And so you can see how they're going. The largest increases are with the Asian and Hispanic. And that happened around 2000 to 2010. You can see that growth increase quite dramatically. And even if you look on the bottom right there, between the Asian and Hispanic at the bottom, Hispanic especially grew 100% between 1990 and 2000. From 2000 to 2010, it's over 100% increase in population. I took those figures and kind of stretched them out into the estimates for 2014. And you can see Black estimates continue to go stand straight up. The Asian is now almost equal to the Black population in Cumberland County. The Hispanic shows a little bit of tailing off there, but it's still increasing at a pretty good rate. So nothing else, it does show that that diversity is continuing in the county. And this just kind of shows you where the different minorities are concentrated in the county, mostly on the West Shore. And then Carlisle Borough is a large percentage of its population, and then down to Shippensburg. And then Shippensburg, you got to put that toward the college, state college being there. But it's interesting. You can't break them down to see which minorities are concentrated where. In fact, Asian is mostly in the West Shore there. In Hampton and East Pennsboro, that's the largest concentration of the Asian population. Hispanic and Black population is mostly in Carlisle Borough. Seems to be where the concentration is. So, but bottom line, just showing that it is getting more diverse. And this sort of summary here, becoming more diverse. The Hispanic and Asian growth rates have increased significantly. They are the two fastest growing minorities in the county. And they're concentrated on the West Shore and Carlisle Borough.
Okay.
Want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I think if anything, if you don't like change, Cumberland County is probably not a great place to live. It's that the county's changed, and we're becoming more diverse. And I think when you look at our residential growth trends and our commercial and industrial growth trends, you'll see that we're growing as well. So what I put in here are just two graphs that really summarize some annual data that we put together at the Planning Commission level. The first is residential growth trends. So we have two lines here. The green line is the number of residential building permits issued by in Cumberland County by municipalities. And the red line here is the proposed residential units. So there are two different data points here. We want to make sure you understand those. Proposed residential units are those units that we see on final plans that come through the county planning office. So every subdivision land development plan that's done in Cumberland County is required that the county planning commission review that and provide comment. So what we do is summarize then on the final plans how many units have been proposed in the county. The green line then is the number of building permits that have been issued. So when you see units that are proposed on the plan, and move through the approvals at the municipal level. And then as those structures are ready to be built, then the municipality will issue a building permit and that structure is built. So we do an annual building permit survey of our municipal partners. They've been great. I mean, you can see how far we go back. We can go back further than this. They send us the data on an annual basis, so we can really track countywide what's happening. So what you see then is the proposals are really the ones that are on the books that will happen or may not happen at some point in the future. But permits then are the realization of those proposals that we're seeing constructed. So when you look back historically here, the big thing that sticks out is back here in 2005, 6, 7. You know, that was the peak of the whole real estate boom. You can see that we were, proposals were well over 2,000 a year for residential units. When you look at the permits of how our permit data is trending, you see that it's not as variable. Okay? You see it's a little more consistent over time. You can see the drop when everything bottomed out, the proposals bottomed out, the real estate market had its problems. You can see the permits bottomed out as well. But I think the key point, takeaway from here is that you saw this huge demand here for proposals back in this timeframe. All those units haven't been constructed, they've been proposed. So as we look out, in the out years here, 2014 and beyond, what we're really gonna see is these proposed units moving to being building permits and constructed units in the future.
Is there a typical lag that would be, if you took out the melt-out years out of it, is there a typical lag between when they get translated from proposed to actual issuance?
Yeah, that's a good point, Gary. It really depends on the size of the development. You know, a lot of times you have major developments that come in with several hundred units. It'll take several years, maybe 5 years for that to
If they're
happen.
done in phases, typically, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You'll have a proposal and then they'll come in the final plan format. So a couple years, you know, a lag or two, a couple years, but what we've seen in the past, you know, and you look at some of the numbers back here, you see it's a little tighter between the proposals and the permits. This is where we just saw our demand being created. Moving ahead, that demand will translate into building permits.
So those proposals don't go away, they just take
Nope.
longer to be absorbed. So you're still working off that number. So that's likely going to remain low for a considerable period of time.
So the red line is all the plans that have been approved at the local municipal level.
That's correct.
But
But
the permits haven't been taken out.
Yeah, they haven't come in
They
with
haven't moved
actual.
forward, they haven't moved forward with the permits.
Yep, they haven't executed the permits.
Yeah.
So,
Now, let me ask this though, are these all single-family homes? And is commercial then any duplex, townhouse, or, I want to say apartment building?
This is everything, single family, multifamily, and also townhomes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see some of the data we have. Looking at last year, about 50% of the residential units proposed were either multifamily or townhouses proposed in the county.
Okay.
So even though those plans were approved, I mean, we're looking at, you know, we're talking a decade here when some of those plans were approved.
Right.
So, I mean, could it be that developers might be going back and taking a look and saying, well, instead of this, we want to do that, and then they would come back in with new plans,
Mhm.
you know, if you're out here?
Yeah,
I
actually,
mean,
yeah, it's a good point, Chip. We have seen some of that. The other thing too, that if you look typically, you'll look at about a 5-year time frame when a municipality approves the final plan. There's about a 5-year time frame there where they have, you know, time to bring forward a final plan and move forward. The legislature has enacted a series of actions to extend all permit approvals. It started back in 2011, I want to say. But all the approvals that have been given historically have been extended through 2016, I believe. There was just an act last week, I believe it was approved, that extends those approvals through 2016. So you see that they're still on the books, they're still waiting.
Okay, but let me, I'm looking at Carl here. Any recent legislation to impact that land or those proposals? Are they grandfathered that they no longer then need to comply? Or are they impacted that now we've got stormwater, you know, fill in the blank, that will then set that plan either in motion or put it on the shelf and never to be done?
The approvals are supposed to stay in place. I'm not sure about the stormwater side.
NPDES permits are good for 5 years, and they have to come back in. If there's new regulations, then they'll have to meet the new regulations. And in 2013 and 14, we had a lot of them come in because they used to be two-year permits, but now they're 5. So we have a lot of renewals. So yeah.
And Jim, your point on the transition of maybe residential lanes to something else, we have seen some of that. Folks have come in and proposed residential, maybe they're coming back now with commercial and industrial.
All I'm thinking of is a lot of these things were proposed back before the bottom fell out, you know, and so now there may be, you know, a revision in what the original intent was, you know.
The one, I'll go back here to Jeff's graph. The one interesting part, when you see, you know, that we have this differential between the permits and the demand. We look at Mechanicsburg Borough, this little piece sticking down right here is Hess Farm. So there's a proposal right now to develop that as kind of mixed use development, 680 some units there. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because that right now, that's the biggest game in town in terms of new development in the county. And it's in one of our boroughs that's losing population. So it'll be interesting to test to see.
Is that multifamily or is that single?
Multifamily, townhome,
Yeah.
and single family.
It's like a whole mix.
So,
Commercial.
Yeah.
so Kirk, could you go back to that? Yeah. So I think the whole notion of the ratio and the lag is interesting. But if you try to somehow figure out the correlation between population growth and development and housing starts, okay, and permits will be a pretty close measure of that. It seems, though, that we've had this period of really sharp increase in population that hasn't really translated into a really big expansion of housing, new housing starts. Does that mean that we're increasing population and moving into existing housing stock, or we're getting more renters? Because if you look at some of the places that were red in terms of population growth, the places along the Susquehanna, the mythology that I hear, the oral history, is that a lot of folks are coming from Susquehanna Township across the river and probably occupying rental units, and that's where some of that growth is coming. I would have expected that we would have seen, without thinking too deeply about it, we would expect that with a big population increase, a rapid population increase, you'd see more, it would translate into more housing starts.
Actually, what you'll see, we are the fastest growing county in the state, but when you look at the numbers, we've been extremely stable in our population growth. Jeff and I were talking about this before we left. There's not really a peak in our growth. It's just consistent, about 1% per year in growth for Cumberland County. So when you look at it, we need about 1,000 building permits per year to support that 1% population growth. So when you look at it, you can see back here, we're exceeding it. Up here, we got closer to where we're at now, we're about on par. So I think what we've seen is that the need for new housing has been really close to what our population demands. Again, that 1% population growth requires about 1,000 building permits per year to support it. If you're looking at just supporting new construction, there's existing construction that's out there, our vacancy rate's relatively low.
The other thing we're not tracking this is how many owner-occupied dwellings have converted to rental, which is, I think, happening pretty significantly in some areas of the West Shore, where they're no longer owner-occupied, but they, family.
They break them up in more than one unit.
Well, or, you have older folks pass away and all of a sudden it's purchased by somebody who wants to use it as a rental as opposed to, for single family occupancy.
And the rentals too, Jim, that's a good point. We have seen an increase, probably in the last 3 to 4 years, of interest in multifamily units. And we've seen, you have the overlook down in East Pennsboro, there's others that have been proposed and implemented. And our feedback from the market is that there's a bigger demand for that because when you've seen the crash of the real estate market, folks are looking for rentals and they're not looking to get into a big mortgage.
Well, it's harder to get a mortgage.
Well, and some are simply looking to move away from the lawn, the snow, the removal, whatever. So in some type of a, condominium association or, townhouse, that frees you up if you're aging to not then have to worry of maintaining a yard and everything else.
If we look at the numbers here, I have some notes on the handouts there. We look at where the growth's occurring. It's really occurring in the, not surprisingly, the 8 municipalities listed here, from North Middle up, have been the big growth places in Cumberland County. The one that I would call out would be Southampton Township in the western part of the county. You're seeing that they're coming up as a leader in terms of proposed units, and it's one that I think moving ahead, that township could look very different if you see the implementation of all the units that are out there. But mentioning the trends, we did see recently they had a request that came in for an agricultural security area for one of the parcels that had a residential plan on it that was proposed and the final plan approved. Came back, the real estate market went under, the owner of the land now wants to farm it and wants an ASA designation, so we'll work with them on that. But those municipalities, I just call them the big 8, are the ones where we're seeing most of the growth in Cumberland County.
Have you seen anything so far in 2015 here that would indicate that things have picked up more than what it was last year?
So far this year, probably the big thing is that legacy plan. That's the largest one that's come in.
Cancer.
In New Hampshire, yeah. That's probably the largest thing I've seen here. It's about on par with last year so far. As far as the middle of the year, about the same as last year.
So that's residential, commercial, industrial. My life's planning axiom is that there's no better land use than retail. So I don't know if I agree with that.
Sorry to hear that.
We see Target and everything like that.
And probably every man in this room would say that, but I fully agree.
She likes retail, so when we look at commercial and industrial trends, I think what you'll see immediately, the scale, you can see the numbers aren't thousands, we're down under 100 most of these. You also see that there's a tighter dispersion here too of the proposals, again in red, and the permits in green. So we have seen, a little tighter dispersion there. Last year, you can see that the permits were kind of went up again. The higher numbers we've seen in 2012 and 2014, a lot of those we've seen some redevelopment in Carlisle Borough. So you see new businesses going there, you see commercial industrial permits for those businesses being reflected here, which is good. When you look at some of our redevelopment efforts for the boroughs throughout Carlisle, Camp Hill, Williamsburg, Cumberland, it's good to see that reinvestment in some of our core communities.
Is that repurposing buildings or is this new buildings?
Repurposing. There are some new, but most of the repurposed.
But most are the building permit issued for remodeling, repurposing, adding a wing or something onto it.
There's no business coming into it.
Right. But I think that's important because there's so much, online sort of shopping and whatever, where, for your wife's sake, I think the retail isn't that bad.
So when you look at where this is occurring, at 72% of the building permits for commercial industrial occur in those 8 municipalities: Silver Spring, South Middle, Carlisle, Upper Island, Hampton, Lower Island, East Penn, Southampton. And that's the same on the residential side. 65% of residential permits are in those same municipalities. When we look at geographically here, we had Farmland Preservation Board this morning, and we talked a little bit about growth in the county. That if you look at the top growing counties, they're also the top counties for agricultural production. Cumberland County is, I think, unique, and I think we're doing things the right way. When you look at our growth, really our growth is here, and we look at our ag industries here. I think we've done a pretty good job of making sure that when we're targeting the agriculture industry, we're kind of separating out some of the areas where you have sewer and water access, good infrastructure that are really prime for development, separating the ag areas out of that. So, some of these areas out here, we want to cluster the land. It's the best soil, in some cases, in the nation, and try and keep our ag industry here and trying to provide for growth in the area where it's best suited. So I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Moving ahead, I think we want to keep an eye on that, try and work with our municipalities to think about issues like that, and also see the continued redevelopment, reinvestment on the West Shore with a lot of our core communities: Camp Hill, Williamsburg, Lemoyne, Mechanicsburg. A lot of good work going on there now with the redevelopment authority and those communities. But keeping a focus on that and not seeing that all of our growth has to be accommodated by our townships. So that's all we really had, just kind of a quick overview of where we're headed. Any other questions?
Go back to that one question was raised earlier about the housing stock being converted to rental, and then I guess Jeff, you mentioned about those cases where it goes into multiple units. We do have a way of tracking that, don't we? Wouldn't that?
Yes. Well, we do track that with our building permit survey each year.
Okay, so that would be reflected in your
Yes.
in your numbers. Okay, all right. The reason I ask is the questions always come up in Mechanicsburg, for instance. The last two census releases, our numbers are going down in the borough where I live, but we've added new housing stock. Almost none of it's in blight or extensive disrepair or vacant. And then, of course, you have these units, especially on Main Street, that instead of housing one family, now housing four. So, folks in Mechanicsburg are always telling me, we don't believe this number, we just don't believe it. We don't see any evidence of where those numbers are going to. So, do we have numbers that show us, other than building permit numbers, and indeed the population is decreasing, and what's happening to those properties that if we don't have vacant properties, how do you make the numbers up?
So we have the conversion numbers. Those conversion numbers are provided to us from the borough, so if our numbers are wrong, their numbers are wrong.
Yeah.
And I guess the other piece.
And they will admit that sometimes it's happening without their knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, sure. It's not,
well, just by subscribing to that.
the rest of it's the census, so
Yeah.
figure out how much faith you want to put in the census.
Well, that is kind of where I was going to, is do we feel our census numbers are good and reliable? And, in Mechanicsburg, we've had a significant uptick in immigrant population as well. And the question keeps coming up is, are these people counted in the census? Supposedly, yes, everybody should be counted in the census. So, I'm just saying, the questions come away pretty frequently.
to it. School populations, depending on the age of individuals, are they bringing children to school? Maybe they're homeschooled. Demand on services, maybe you see an uptick in service demand. Libraries, I mean, things like that that are more socially driven numbers might be able to help support that there really are more people there. Or if you see fewer numbers, then maybe in fact those numbers do support the fact that people, have left. Or age-wise, no kids in school, elderly, no demand on services, or fewer demands, Department of Aging might have some stuff. So I think you might be able to, walk that back.
Would you go back to that slide that shows the age of the workforce, compared to the previous 10 years?
That one?
Yeah.
That's a pretty significant change over 10 years. It was 35 to 49, now it's 45 to 64. I think it's probably generally something that we said about the state of Pennsylvania as a whole. We've been losing a lot of our young people, that are moving out of the state or moving to other areas. But that's something that I think we need to keep an eye on and be concerned about. Because pretty soon there's going to be, not enough young people that essentially going to be doing all the work for us.
But I think what you need to look at too is 10 years ago, not just the workforce, but where were they working? So what type of work was being done? If it was 10 years ago, manufacturing and so on, that might have had a different audience of workers capable of doing those jobs than an aging workforce that might not be capable of doing those jobs. So I think you need to see what industry those individuals 10 years ago, 35 to 49, were working in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some industries that remain the same, like, teaching and, some of those, but they're constant. But there are other industries, as I understand, that left the area. So maybe that took a different age group. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
I think there's a link to economic development. When we look at this data, we see the bulge up here, but we're not, we're seeing some consistency. Maybe a little bulge here, the 20 to the 24s, but with all the educational institutions we have in the county, looking ahead, that if these folks are kind of moving into the retirement age and we need, replacements from, the younger population, we have the colleges and universities trying to link them up with the businesses that are here in Cumberland County. Makes a lot of sense. So that we see, rather than having this be stagnant with, mostly the college age, high school and college age population being stagnant, going somewhere else. If we can keep them here, then we'd see the migration of this age group up through the ranks here and be here for the workforce.
Well, I guess the question is, this is the workforce in the county. They are not working somewhere else. Correct. So also the larger employers, meaning the government, either in the form of the municipalities, schools, or DOD, also then take a considerable chunk of that. So at 50, for some of those, you may be able to retire. So,
That's what I was-
looking at like DOD, depending on the workforce, you may be in retirement at 50.
Okay.
So, that's why I said I think you need to see where these people worked and what industries are following the aging workforce, or what industries have gone away.
Well, I was thinking the same thing. Those numbers may be skewed a little bit in that we might have, since the federal government is the number one employer in Cumberland County, if some of these folks are retiring at 50, 55, but they might still be, they may have started their own business, and they're showing up in that workforce category now, but or they're working somewhere else, in addition to their retirement. So they would be factored into these numbers, right?
Well, that's why I asked you earlier, is this full-time, part-time, and everybody that's receiving a paycheck?
We're just looking at, these are population and age of,
Yeah.
this is as they define the workforce,
Okay.
from the 20 to 64.
Yeah.
So what we're really interested in is what's going to be the GDP growth for the county over the next 5 years. Are we as much out of the recession as we're ever going to be? Is it going to be flat for the next 3 to 5? What do you think? No, and you won't, I'm not betting my money on this, so it's not official. You won't be held to this, but what's your thoughts about that?
I mean, personally, I'd say flat. I think it's a slow climb. We're seeing some positivity, with some of the permit information. There's some variability up and down, it's not constant flat. My thought would be pretty much the same.
As far as construction plans coming into Conservation District, 2014 probably was the most activity since 2007. And, and so it showed a good trend, a lot of residential, obviously warehousing, some, some agricultural big operations expanding, stuff like that. But that was the most activity we've had in 7 years. So,
I think the price too of building materials, I think banks now are, sort of, erring on the side or edging on the side of loaning. So I think there are a lot of variables that go into this to make one of these building permits actually happen. So, I mean, we hear that in Conservation District, a lot, so.
There's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the county too. You have a lot of good things going on here in Carlisle Borough. You have the big plan I mentioned in Mechanicsburg Borough. And when you look at our core communities, our downtowns, I think there's a lot of work being done there. My Holly Springs is a good example where folks are really looking and saying, how can we improve? How can we change the future? And they're all good signs, because when you start getting folks together, they do make change happen. I think that's when you get a lot of that investment, new businesses, new residents back in those communities.
So if we go back to that Penn State data, you talked about the types of professions that are growing, sort of white collar management, more technically skilled. Would you, and then again, we would be held to this, given that the areas of population growth were centered around the West Shore, would you feel that that's probably where those types of individuals are, and their numbers are increasing, that's where those increases take place? Because clearly there's no big increase in population in primarily agriculture. So it again, just call me paranoid, but it seems again that the whole notion of whether the middle class is there, that sort of working class, lower middle class. It seems like our farm economy is very strong, but not particularly labor intensive. And where we are getting growth has been in upper incomes located around the West Shore, either on the West Shore or over across the river. So I wonder, and maybe what this shows is that those, young people coming over and starting families in their 20s and stuff, maybe that's not where our growth is at this point.
Yeah, you're probably right, Larry. I think that when you look to some of the growth municipalities, especially the second-class townships, a lot of that's new construction. So I'm not sure that young folks fresh out of school, especially now, are the ones building that. Right. But we are seeing the growth in multifamily developments, which hopefully be some opportunities there. And then kind of our first-ring suburbs, the Lower Allens, the Camp Williamsburg, Lemoyne, and others that may have nice properties that are good starter homes for folks to get into. But we do see the overlay of where our population's at and where the investment in some of those new industries are going to be.
I think that gravitating on the western side of the county is important too, because I think a lot of folks move and sort of for services in Franklin. Kind of Chambersburg shopping area, Chambersburg Hospital. 81's kind of a quick, trip down there. And I think that you see a lot more folks kind of looking that way. And even south to some extent to Adams, but certainly I think, for Franklin. The commitment that Penn State's made now for Carlisle Regional with the trauma center is significant as an anchor, sort of that halfway between Chambersburg and, Lifeline to get to, another West Shore hospital or in Hershey. But a lot of folks that way kind of look that way rather than coming this way for a variety of things.
And Hagerstown too is, I think, a big pull too. That's grown very quickly.
We don't have any way to gauge, like in terms of we know our population's grown by about 8,000 according to census data in the past 4 years. Do we have any way to gauge as to how many of those folks who have moved here essentially came from Dauphin County.
Like a immigration, I have not seen that, no. I think they'll come out with that at the decennial census, I've seen that, but these estimates, I haven't seen any figures like that.
Okay, I mean, the one thing we do have, and I think is an attraction here, is we have excellent school districts by and large throughout the county. We've got a lot of other reasons as to why young families might be, coming across the river to live here, to be honest with you.
And I wonder how many people, although we really didn't see that much of a decline, I wonder how many people left and came back. Said, you know what, damn, this is a pretty good place to be. I really never should have moved away. And I did move away, but now I'm looking to, start a family, purchase a home, and this really is a nice place to be. So that would be interesting too. Although, like I said, you haven't seen a great decline in population, but some have. And again, it'd be interesting to know how many people came back.
Especially college students, you're going to go to
Oh, sure.
Boulder or Portland.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sign me up for that,
The little studio apartment's not going to accommodate your family, so then you need to come back.
Then you need to come back.
Come back home.
So-
Mom can be a babysitter.
Have you looked at northern York County at all to see, how they're doing in terms of where we are? I mean, I would imagine Northern York's going pretty fast too.
The Pittsburgh area is really strong.
Yeah.
Some of the other areas are still pretty rural in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the northern school district population.
Yeah.
Of course, they all come over and use our library for free.
Yeah.
They use our bridges to cross.
Yeah, they do. But we got a little bit out of them, remember?
It's amazing though, when you talk to a lot of the officials from northern York County, they associate themselves more with the capital region than they do with the city of York. I mean, it's kind of like this is their neighborhood, and it's our neighborhood, regardless of where the county line might be.
Or where the library, nearest library.
Well, that's too
This is good, thank you so much.
Thanks.
interesting.
Yeah.
So we've got the bridge over troubled water?
Okay.
All right.
I just want to give you a quick update. I'm not looking for if you have questions and stuff, but just kind of a precursor. When we posted Lighting the Bridge back in July, I've received more response over the posting of that bridge than any bridge we've posted in the past. So I heard from several farmers, I heard from the South Bend Municipal Authority, I heard from ag service providers that are coming in to spray crops or bring seed in. When you look at that bridge and where it's located, there's only two other alternative routes if they can't use that bridge because of the weight posting. One is further down Atlantic Road, but it requires the usage of another county bridge, which is posted lower, Maggie Bridge in South Bend Township. If you go the other way, you're coming off of 74 on the Creek Road, it's a really tight hairpin turn, they can't get big equipment through there. So, I've talked to a lot of folks that are concerned. I've requested them to give us the information on the vehicles they're using, the weight, and the frequency of use. It's similar to what we did in Wars Bridge, where we've issued temporary emergency use permits. We might be able to do something similar with lighting. So far, I've received a manure hauler contacted me this week and gave me some information on HRG looking at that. But looking ahead, I think it's a serious issue, one that we need to keep an eye on and potentially fast track that project. It's kind of in our phase 2 of our bridge program. I'm working with finance now to see if we can move it up. But if we move it up, it may cause some short-term cash flow issues in 2016, 2017 with the rest of our program. So just, not to ring the alarm yet, but just to make you aware, there are issues out there that, I knew there may be some agriculture impacts, but getting a lot of calls from folks.
Is this bridge, on the tip, I mean, are we expected to get any federal or state funding for this bridge?
No. It's on the long-range plan, but it's not on the tip.
And I think the conversation was how many vehicles, and that was what, less than 1,000?
It's around, I think it's like 1,500.
1,500.
Yeah.
But I don't think we had that conversation on anything else, emergency services vehicles, but nothing else at the time.
Ag vehicles, one of our preserve farms is
Sure.
back there too, so we look at it to support the agriculture economy. It's a pretty important.
Well, and as the fall happens, you can imagine then that traffic will escalate, proportionately with the fall activity on the farm.
So this is another example where you see a bridge that was unrestricted. Then when we do our inspections, then we have to do the reduction of weight posting. So this is the unpredictability of the bridge program. And when you look at it, today it's good, tomorrow it may have some issues. And this type of design of bridges, adjacent concrete box beam, it is kind of subjected to this, where you'll see pretty quick deterioration you need to stay on top of them. So it's a design that's proven to be failed. 1950s era bridges, you look at Orris Bridge, Bernheisel Bridge, this one, they're all the same design. They're all starting to show problems at the same time. So I think it's one we want to keep an
Is
eye
this
on.
one weight restricted to, was it 27?
27.
Yeah.
If we were to move this,
What the heck vehicle, because what we were told, most of the fire trucks and that can cross it at 27 tons. So what is it that can't get across it that's?
The manure hauler that I talked to,
Okay.
they're fully loaded. There's a sprayer that they use that comes out to spray most of the fields back there. There's a contract sprayer, they call it, and say, we're really close. So what we've been encouraging people is if you're really close, we need to know now. And
So
I would say,
we'll maybe
don't
go-
just assume you can use it.
Is there milk out there?
Milk trucks do, yeah. So a lot of it gets back to, the number of axles and how that weight's distributed across the vehicle. So while it's 27 tons, we can take a close analysis of it. If it's infrequent emergency use, we may be able to do it. But we don't want to give the perception out there that, hey, it's okay, you may issue a permit or it's good to use it. That's not. We weight post it for a reason.
Kirk, if we were to put this tomorrow, we were to put this at the top of our list, how soon before that would change?
In terms of how quickly could we get it done if funding's in place? I would see it following a similar schedule to Hanks Mill if it's totally our funding, of about 18 months. So it's a matter, we have some other projects in the hopper. I'm working now to see how we might be able to move things around to make it happen sooner, but it's one that I'm not real comfortable leaving out there and saying, it's further down the road. I think it's one that we can probably take action on. And maybe there's some other bridges that aren't quite as critical or showing the need as this one to maybe move around.
And there are only those 2 available detours.
Yeah, well, there's 3 access points to that general area. 2 of them have weight restricted bridges that are our bridges. The other one is not weight restricted, but it's really narrow and tight turning radius.
Can any of those areas be serviced by any different type of service vehicle?
In this case, with the ag service, it's probably not. I mean, it's a
That's-
manure hauler or an easy.
You don't have a small one in your middle bar.
Right.
That's it. I know. I thought I'd ask. Because somebody will ask us, well, why can't they put, instead of one large truck, 2 smaller trucks? Not gonna work.
Did we want to talk about the editorial that you had developed, drafted?
Look good to me. I mean,
The thought on that was, with Bernheisel Bridge and some others, we got a lot of questions of why does it take so long?
Sure.
We put a post on Facebook and reached over
Every
16,000
time.
people in like 4 hours.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps saying, oh, why does it take so long?
$2 million 2 years.
Yeah, so I think it's important that we start getting the message out there and trying, to educate folks. It's not in the county's best interest to delay these projects and see how long it can take. That's not what we're about. That there are other outside agencies we work with that we have to incorporate their review into the project and follow the standards that are set. And that's reality. If we could snap our fingers today and fix Lilac tomorrow, we do that. It's not in our interest to delay these projects or see how long it can take. I mean, we try to get it done as fast as possible, but we have to follow the course that's been set.
And while there are a variety of products out there, and certainly I've received some calls on, well, I've seen this used somewhere else. And why can't you just simply fly in a bridge, drop it in, and replace it? A variety of things. And this isn't, new engineering, this isn't designing the bridge, it is simply replacing the bridge. But all of it sort of needs to be respectfully addressed.
Right.
And I would say many of these, while they're similar, are not necessarily all the same.
Well, I just want to say I share the frustration of the public with respect to all the bureaucratic hurdles that we have to go through. And I think, if we can point the public, in the direction of the bureaucracy that holds these things up, I think that would be great. I think all of us would like to see us deal with and take care of the backlog. We have structurally deficient bridges. We've taken action to try to provide for an alternative funding mechanism. One of the first counties in the state of Pennsylvania to do that, so we're not putting this burden on the backs of our property taxpayers. At the same time, what's important is we want to make sure that just because we enacted that we don't get our fair share of the funding from the state Act 89, the state funding that was adopted. And then on the other side of this whole equation is the federal government for what, the 34th time kicking the can down the road with respect to providing for a federal funding transportation equation to all this. So, I mean, they're the ones that have us jumping through all these hoops and doing all these studies that go on for years, it seems. But I sympathize with the public. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why does it take 18 months? Why does it take 24? Why does it take 10 years? Why did it take 12 years to do the Center Street realignment in East Pennsboro that resulted in the East Penn Drive, and eliminating a dangerous S-curve that existed for way too many years? I mean, this has been going on for a long time.
And the economic impact to an industry that, again, is a considerable contributor to the county, and that's ag. So, this isn't nice to have. This is, someone's business and livelihood. So.
If we didn't have the $5 fee, I talk a lot of folks about these, if we didn't have the $5 fee, we would be stuck. Especially as needs like Light Bridge come up and others, we would be stuck, waiting and really kicking the can down the road on some activities. We plant the money tree somewhere because we just, we just wouldn't have the funds.
Kirk, on that, the other one was very good. My only comment would be this camping practice is a once and done. If we set that as a major communications objective, maybe you could work with the communications team. I know you talked to them already on this regard. There should be an ongoing concerted effort. And, just putting it out once does not solve the
Quarterly update sounds promising. He's been there to work with you now. He deals with, he got all those crazy people in this area. Maybe he can help you out with the bridges. But I think this thing, because these projects are protracted, that again, if we don't say something and people assume we're doing nothing, if you show them progress, and we are making progress with this, we are putting that $5 registration fee to good use compared to where we were 2 years ago. We're in a much better place, but I want you to remind people of that. I think this thing about no matter what you do with any of these bridges, you're going to have some people who don't care about it at all, and you have some people who are directly affected. And I think, if we wind up changing, putting this particular one that you just spoke about higher up, I think people need to know that, to show that we are taking into account information, that we get feedback, we made the plan based on the best information we had available. But the point is, it's an evolving program that hopefully by the end of it, we'll be in a much better place. So I think quarterly update would be something to think about.
I think it's important to express that partnership, that through design, through the engineers, there's no delay. This isn't a board that has said, okay, we're going to study this for another 2 years. Yeah, there are absolutely no studies on these. I mean, we're relying on the professionalism and the contracts that we've entered into with the design and with the engineers to make this happen. So I think that's important. They say, well, we'll look at this for a few more years or months. Absolutely not. And by no means does the decision to limit or restrict a bridge isn't a easy decision to make, but one that responsibility you have to make. So.
Plus, I think what we do is we buy your kids underwater cameras. And when they go swimming down by the bridge, you can take pictures of those endangered mussels.
Yeah.
And you can make that part of your update. Here's the mussel family now. Here's where their new residents down there are.
Population growth.
Absolutely. Migration.
Conservation district. Wait, help me.
Here's Carl Gorshin moving in the sofa. Moving in the sofa. All right.
Everything.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Thank you, gentlemen.